Hi there, I'm Teri Hart, your host for the Hart of It All, a podcast all about caregiving. From Winnipeg to Broadway star, Amazing Race Canada winner, brain cancer advocate, and warrior mom, Catherine Wreford. Today on the pod, we are learning about receiving care. Welcome to the show. While you are listening, do me a favor. Give us a follow so you don't miss an episode and save a previous episode that you may have missed. I really love learning from our guests. And one of the series we do here on the podcast is personal stories. We hear from folks who have or are currently caregiving, and also, and maybe most importantly, those who have been on the receiving end of care. Today's guest is truly remarkable. After having her second child in 2013, Catherine Wreford was diagnosed with brain cancer at 32 years old and given just 2 to 6 years to live. Let me do the math for you. That was 13 years ago. Since then, she has gone through 6 rounds of chemotherapy and radiation. She moved back to Canada after living in Los Angeles and Oklahoma. She won the Amazing Race Canada, and she became an advocate working with Brain Cancer Canada. Catherine, a big welcome to you here on the Heart of It All.
Thank you, Teri. Hi.
Hi, I'm so pleased to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here.
Take me back to 2013 and the diagnosis, and then what was the protocol?
My amazing race partner, Craig, was visiting me for my birthday, and I had flown him out to Oklahoma. And my daughter was 5 weeks old, so we were making a video of her and her, like Bjorn, and I was doing he's a fitness expert, sorry. So we were doing squats and lunges, and I was like, oh, Craig, I have to stop. He was like, well, what do you mean you have to stop? I'm like, dude, my head hurts. I have a headache. He goes, no, you would never stop. If I know you, you would never stop. And I was like, dude, I just had a baby. You've never had it. And he goes, no, you need to promise to go to the hospital or call your midwife on Monday, because it was the weekend. He was leaving the next day. So I said, okay, fine. So I called them on Monday morning, and they said, you need to come to the emergency room immediately. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, well, you shouldn't be having any of those symptoms, let alone all of them together. I had like migraines, which I didn't really know were migraines, but like they were intense pain in my head. And my arm and like legs were a little bit numb, but I was like, oh, I'm lying on my arm too long. I'm lying on my leg too long. And I was dizzy, but I have really low blood pressure. So that's normal for me. So she said, come to the emergency room. So I went to the emergency room where I had done all my practicals, because I was a nurse at this time. So I went in, and none of them had met my daughter yet. So they're like, oh, Quinn. And so I went right back, and I knew everybody there, and everybody was laughing and joking. And I was like, yeah, Leanne told me to come in because she thinks, whatever. And I thought something was wrong with my heart, because it had like little murmurs, like maybe. So they did 2 EKGs and they couldn't find anything. And they were like, well, one of the nurses said, well, you gave birth naturally, so we're just going to you might have like a small brain bleed. I was like, oh, you're so smart. That's probably exactly what it is. So went in, and then when I came back out, they wouldn't give me my daughter back. Nobody would look me in the eyes. And then like 8 doctors came into the room, and I had a tumor bigger than my fist right here in my head. So then I said, can I call now he's my ex, can I call my husband? And I told him I was going to the hospital and that he needed to stay on his phone, but he didn't answer. So I called Craig, who was the one that was visiting me, and told him, and I said, can you like call my family, because I have to go down for an MRI now, and like they need to do surgery and blah blah blah. And I remember walking down to the MRI. I was downstairs. I remember like in my gown, barefoot, walking down, and I remember lying in the they put your head like in a vice, really, basically, and like put things between your head and so that you're all in there. And I just remember crying, but trying not to move too much because I didn't want to mess up the machine. And I'm thinking my life is 100% different now. Now I have to figure out what the fuck I'm gonna do. Sorry, can I swear on here?
Yes, you
Okay.
can do say whatever you want.
So I had to figure out what the fuck I was gonna do. And I didn't know, and I graduated top of my class. I could walk into whatever hospital I wanted to and get whatever job I wanted to. I got all these awards when I graduated, and now that was totally taken away from me.
So,
Yeah. So, what next?
I mean, I said in the intro, like,
Yeah.
at that point, they gave you 2 to 6 years to live,
Yeah.
and that was 13 years ago.
Yeah. So at
So
that point, they hadn't given me anything. They said, they just knew there was a tumor in my brain and I had to get it removed. It's like my brain was almost hemorrhaging. Like it was pushed so far over that this part of my brain was like on this side. And that's why I had such terrible headaches. But it come on not slowly, but it come on like it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. So like it kind of got used to every day, the feeling of it. So as soon as I took it out, I was like, "Oh my god, that's what it feels like to not have a migraine." And I haven't had one since then, like at all, because it was just the pressure of it in my head.
so you have surgery.
I had surgery, and from there, they were able to tell what it was. And then I had to come in after after they'd graded it, and I had a grade 3 astrocytoma. So
At what
yeah.
point did you start thinking to yourself, so you've got a 5-week-old, and how old was
Mhm.
your son?
2 2 and 9 months. No, 2 years and 10 months now at this point.
At what point did you start thinking to yourself, I'm gonna need care. I'm going to need people that I can rely on, that are going to take care of me.
Well, the very next day, my mom was gonna fly out that night, but she had a ticket to come out the next night because my birthday was in 2 days from then. So she was coming out for my birthday. So she was coming the 25th. My birthday's on the 26th, and I was diagnosed on the 24th. So she was gonna fly out on the 24th. I'm like, "You already have a ticket. Just come tomorrow." So she came the next day, and she stayed with us for 9 out of the 12 months that we were still in Oklahoma. So she basically raised my daughter with me. She slept in the room with her. So she was, a good mummy. But I also had because I had just finished nursing, I had, like, a train of nurses coming, by me and bringing me food and, like, because I normally the cook in the house, so people would bring me, baskets of fruit, which is my favorite thing to eat, especially when when you think, "Oh, I'm gonna make some macaroni and cheese." I'm like, "I just want some fresh fruit," or some fresh vegetables. And people knew that because when I nursing school, I would always bring my container of veggies and my fruit to work, so they knew what I ate. So they were super caring and super lovely.
So, this is a podcast about caregiving, and one of the things that I realized early on, Catherine, is we so rarely get to hear from people who are on the receiving end of care.
Mhm.
And I think it's such an integral part of the dynamic to understand what that looks like. You were gonna say something, tell me.
I'll tell you the best gift I was ever given was when I had to stop breastfeeding my daughter. I breastfed her the whole time I was doing, like, I she was in the hospital with me when I had my surgery, and I was breastfeeding her in the hospital, and then when I had to start my radiation and chemo, I had to stop, and she was 4.5 months old at that point, and when she was about 4 months and a week old, uh, there was a knock on my door, and I'm gonna cry right now, there was this big freezer full of breast milk that was donated to me from all of my nursing friends and from their friends. And when Elliot was a kid, or sorry, when Elliot was a baby, my son, I had extra breast milk, so I would donate it. And so I never expected anything back like this. But when that showed up, they were like, "You thought we were going to just let you go, like like, bottle feed your baby without breast milk. And I was like, I didn't even think about that, but I was like crying so much. And the fact that they even thought of that, I didn't even think of that. Um, and I was just, preparing her, and I was like, this is the last time. And just to to be able to give her breast milk, it's not a huge big deal, but for me to be able to give her breast milk until she was 9 months old was amazing. She doubled the time she had breast milk. And
Incredible.
yeah, and it to me, that because they knew how much that meant to me, it like made a difference.
You said a couple things there that I'm hoping we can dive into a little bit. One of the things you said there is, I didn't even think about that.
Mhm.
How much during those early days, and maybe even in the 13 years since, has it been important that other people see things that you can't because you have so much on your plate and emotionally that you're dealing with?
It's everything, really. I mean, it's the things you don't see that you need the most help with, right? So, even, like, when we are on The Amazing Race, I would ask Craig every night, I'm like, What can I do tomorrow that I was bad at today?" And I said, "Please tell me, because I have no idea." And he said, like, "Honestly?" I said, "Yeah, honestly." He goes, "Well, you could have done, maybe think about this the different way." And I was like, "Okay, got it, got it." So, like, just even asking for help with stuff that yourself are doing, right, is a big deal too.
Another thing you said, in the answer about the incredible story about the donation of breast
That
milk.
still makes me cry.
Oh my goodness, it made me cry. Um, is that they knew it was important to you.
Mhm.
And I think that one of the things that I'm hearing repeatedly from guests we have on the podcast who have been on the receiving end of care
Yeah.
is they need people to think about them. Like,
Mhm.
not what's important to
That person. Yeah.
that person, but what's important to them.
Mm.
Can you peel back the layers a little bit for that, Catherine, in terms of like, "Don't bring me the mac and cheese, bring me the fruits and vegetables," you
Y
know? I mean, it's kind of in that answer as well.
Right, but I'm super open with all of my friends, right? So when my friends know that I need help, they do that, and like, when I see somebody else that might need some help, I remember, "Oh, they liked eating this, and they liked eating that, so I'm gonna bring them that." Not what I'm not gonna bring them fruits and vegetables because they probably won't want that. But and I remember what they eat and what they like, and if I don't know, I'll ask one of their friends that, can tell me, but you have to think about what that person needs, right? So it's not what you want. It's always sort of what can you do to help them feel better? And I think that's when you help anybody, you have to think about that too. It's like what, and sometimes you just say, it's like, what do you need? What do you need from me? Like, I will do whatever you need. I just don't know what to do. So please help me figure out what to do for you, and I will do it. It's hard to know exactly what to do. And sometimes you guess and you get it right. Sometimes you guess and you get it wrong. I think even if you get it wrong, it's still helpful to them, but you just have to sometimes ask people what they need.
By the time you start chemo and radiation, um, Quinn is 4.5 months old, so it's about 3 months after your diagnosis,
Yeah.
and you're in 6 rounds of chemo and radiation for about a year. Is that my
Yeah.
understanding?
So I did proton therapy, which they don't have in Canada. We're trying to get one. And I did 4 different kinds of chemotherapy, which is not really heard of in brain cancer. I got like a third opinion from a doctor in Dallas that gave me what's called the Denver protocol, and it's 4 different because I had my tumor, all the genetics found out in it, which is something, again, 13 years ago they didn't do. So, I knew for some reason that that's what I needed to do. So I did that, and they found like biomarkers in my tumor that would match with the kind of chemo that I had. So I came back to Oklahoma and said, "This is I need to do the Denver protocol," and blah 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 blah. And they're like, "No, I don't think so." And I was like, Please call the doctor in Dallas and talk to her. And if you still say no, that's okay. I just want you to talk to them." So they called and they were on the phone for like 2 hours. And then my Dr. Batiste called me and said, "Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that sounds really good. That we're gonna get you on that right away." And so I did that. And then when I moved back to Winnipeg, I had Dr. Marshall Peets, and he said, "No, we can't do that." I said, "Can you call my oncologist back in Oklahoma and just have a conversation? If you still think we shouldn't do it, we won't do it." So he called him after a couple hours. He's like, "Yeah, you're right. This is what we should do." So it's hard because you have to be such an advocate for yourself. And if I wasn't, I'd probably be dead. I'd probably be dead right now if I wasn't such an advocate for myself and for helping other people be an advocate for themselves as well. So,
That is a hell of a statement, Catherine. It's a hell
yeah,
of a
well,
statement.
I mean, I would be. I mean, I'd get the normal chemotherapy and I'd have the radiation and I'd be 13 years later when you have full radiation, you lose a lot of stuff in going on in your brain. And the fact that I'm still performing, still dancing, still singing, that's to me, that's something that I can be proud of. Yeah.
Oh, you got a real long list of things to be proud of, my friend. You got a real long list. So give me an idea of what caregiving or receiving care looks like through the process of chemotherapy and radiation.
Well, for me, I used to hate asking for help. Like, I used to hate it, and now I'm like, "Okay, I need this and this and this." I'm like but it's easy stuff to do, right? But, like, when I was first I was like, "No, I don't need any help. I'm good, I'm good, I'm good," because I was like, head of my class, I held study groups, I taught other people, and, when I was diagnosed, I'm like, "Oh, shit, I think I might need some help." So, for me, people showed up and did it without me having to ask, but then later when I moved back here, um, I had to, when I had a baby and a toddler and, an ex who was not responsible at all for them. So, when we first moved back, um, it was still hard for me to ask for things, but I realized I need help with my kids. And my sister just lives down the block, so she would take them every now and then, and not just because I was still doing chemo. I'd done my radiation, but I was still doing chemo, and sometimes I'd be exhausted, and I couldn't do much with them. I just sort of had to lie down, and then my sister or my mom would take them out to the park or bike riding, and then I would meet them there, you know? I'd sort of have, like, half an hour, and then I'd go and meet them there, and that was a major thing that they did for me too that was really, really helpful. And they didn't lose out on, like, being with family because it was, my sister and my mom, so, yeah.
Is there a difference? We've kind of been using the terms interchangeably, but I'm wondering from your perspective, is there a difference between help and care?
Well, help is just, like, let me do something for you. Care is, like, actually, like, caring about, like, your spirit and, like, your person, like, really making sure that you are okay, that you are feeling good inside your body. That's how I think help is like, let me do this for you and that for you and that for you and that for you. But care is like really making sure that your person is okay.
I'm going to ask you if this is the right question to ask because I don't know the language, so please
Okay.
educate me.
Okay.
Um,
Don't know if
do
I'll know either. Yeah.
do I say that you are living with brain cancer?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the right language.
Hmm.
Um, are you okay with people asking you like asking you a question?
Always. So
Okay,
I'm so open about everything. I don't want my kids to think like, oh, it's a bad word. We can't say cancer in front of our mom. Like they know
okay.
I have cancer, but they haven't really. To Quinn, I've always had cancer. So, like, she doesn't know me any other way. Elliot sort of remembers me without cancer. I had, like, long hair and, but, hair's just hair. Like, I actually liked being bald 'cause I didn't have to do anything with it. But
So you've been living with brain cancer for
Mhm,
13 years now.
mhm.
What does care look like now?
Well, every 3 months I get an MRI. I had my MRI last Friday, and I get the results tomorrow. So, I also, in the last year and a half, have sort of had. I don't know if they're seizures or, moments where I can't find my word. It's still in my speech center. I can't find my words, or I talk gobbledygook for half an hour. So, sometimes it's because 'cause I'm tired, but sometimes it's not when I'm tired, and that's worrisome. But, it had a little growth and hasn't really grown since then, or not enough for them to do anything. So I know it's gonna happen pretty soon that it'll start really growing. So every MRI I have now, I'm like, I get even more nervous because for a while I was like, I can't believe it. This is great. This is great. And then, and I was like, I'm invincible. And then September 2024 happened. I was like, I'd already planned like what I was gonna say on my Instagram because I always have my on-callers just do double jazz hands when I get a stable. And so I was, like, writing it out, and then he goes, "Well," I go, "Oh, shit." I go, "Well, let's just do one jazz hand because it's a small group, but we don't have to do anything yet." So I was trying to make the best of it, but, like, it was devastating to hear that, but, you just sort of have to, like, "Okay, well, we're not doing anything yet about it, so we're just watching it," and so, like, so I kinda live every 3 months at a time, you know?
So the people in your life, the people who are your support system, who
Yeah.
are your caregivers, who
Mm,
are your helpers,
mhm.
what do you want? What do you need from them around those 3-month scans, around that scanxiety that I understand? Kind
Kindness, and the understanding that I might have a short temper. Not a short temper, but I get frustrated really easily because I want it to be perfect. I want this to be perfect and that to be perfect because this might not be perfect, so I need everything else to be perfect around me. So I stay I stay pretty busy during that week. Um, but still it's rough. It's hard when you are, I could get terrible news tomorrow, but then I'll just keep on with the day, you know?
and they're gonna be great.
Yeah.
They're gonna be great.
I mean, they might
Does
not be
that
great.
help? Like, when I say something like that, like, I just caught myself there.
Yeah.
When I'm like, "They're gonna be great." The fact is you don't know if they're gonna be great. Does
No.
it like, when somebody says that, does that, like, make you wanna reach and punch me in the face? I'm like, "I don't know
Not
if
a
they're
little
gonna."
not just a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit. Like, I'm like, when people I know why you're saying it, because you wanna help me. But to me, like, they're like, "Well, whatever it is, we'll work with it," you know? Like, "Whatever happens, we'll figure it out." You know? So I
So
never say like,
that
"Oh, you're gonna be great, you're gonna be perfect, it'll be perfect, you're gonna come away and you'll be celebrating." I'm like, "Well, if you're not, we'll go have a drink," you know? It's like, so I never promise anything to anybody because I know better than that, but because I've been through this, I don't say like, "Oh, it'll be fine." I'll be like, "Might not be fine," might never say that. I'm like, "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out."
okay. So the breast milk story is incredible, and extraordinary.
Yeah.
Can you give us another example, Catherine, of something that somebody did, or like a situation that was just right? That was just like, "Oh, yeah, everybody could learn from that."
So if I'm meeting somebody or I've met somebody lots of times before and I have, Craig knows that I can't remember people's names. I don't remember even if I've met them before sometimes. And so, I always say, Craig, he doesn't know, he doesn't do this on purpose. He just goes and introduces himself and he says, "Oh, I can't remember your name. What is it again?" So like that helps me so much, and I don't have to feel like embarrassed or anything. But he doesn't care. He's like, "Hi, my name's Craig. Have I met you before? What's your name again?" So it makes me feel like, oh, now I know. Okay, now I know. Now I remember that from this person. And so like he just does that all the time for me. When I get a role, they know that it has to go into my long term memory. So they're not supposed to do this, but they send me the script, they send me the songs right away, as soon as I get cast. So I don't have to, you know, wait till like a month before. And then so I sing the songs 3 times a day. I say the lines 3 times a day. It goes into my long-term memory. And then when I'm on stage, it just comes out of me.
So people can be really helpful.
people can be super helpful because they understand. And also you have to tell them what you need too. Like, I need to have this to be able to do that. If you want me to do that, I need this.
I love that. The specificity of that is so, and the honesty with that. All right. So on the flip side of that, let's assume people aren't trying to be hurtful, but sometimes people do miss the mark. I mean,
Mhm.
I think I just missed the mark when I
No, you're
said, "Oh, it's going to be fine," but that is, but I
yeah, yeah.
that is one of the things. So maybe something that wasn't intended,
Yeah.
but it's the mark.
When I say, like, I have terminal brain cancer, whatever, and they like, "Oh, yeah, no, my friend had that, and she lived for, like, 5 years after that." And I'm like, "But she's dead now, so that's how you're trying to make me feel better?" Like, what? She lasted for 5 years, or 10 years. I'm like, "I was 32 when I was diagnosed. I'm 45 now, like, almost 46. Like, I don't want you to tell me that they lived 10 years. That's not good." So it's things like that, or, like, or just like what you said, like, or like, have you tried, like, taking, these kind of pills or turmeric or whatever it kills cancer, I'm like, sorry, it doesn't even go to my brain. So sorry, won't go past the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, people love to
Yeah.
give suggestions, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. And and I just sort of say, thank you. And that's it, because I can't argue with them because they've already made up their mind.
I'm always interested in, you know, healthcare and healthcare professionals' language
Mhm.
and the empathy that they either show or don't show.
Right.
And
A couple nurses that had very good bedside manner and a couple nurses that did not have very good bedside manner, and doctors too.
I bet,
Yeah.
I bet. Um, what has been your experience about how healthcare professionals speak to you, around you, about
Right.
you, that we can either, as I said, learn from or hope to change?
I know that nurses and doctors, they're so busy, but if they just take 2 seconds to just listen to you and actually listen to you, I think that is one of the biggest things, to, like, listen to what your concerns are. If it's like a tiny little thing, they can just fix it easily, right? It's not it's like my phone is on the wrong side of me. I need it to be on the like, it's not that hard, right? But sometimes it's a bigger deal, but just, like, just listen and fix the little things that you can fix and make sure that everything is to like, when you're in a hospital, you're in a foreign bed, you're in a foreign place, you don't have anything that's familiar to you, and if you just want one thing that you can just have, that you can control, that you have the power of doing, that's what matters, because you can't control anything that else is going on, right? So if you can just have that one thing, or like that one item with you, or whatever it is, make sure they have that. Make sure it doesn't ever leave their place. Yeah, I know they have their tight schedules, but like, if something doesn't work at that particular time, maybe it's an emotional moment for them that they need to do something, whatever. Respect that. It's just, it's people have their ways of doing things, and if you can't just you just have to be aware of how that person works, and it's not that big of a deal sometimes to just say, "Oh, yeah, okay, you don't like that, but you like this and you're okay with this," right?
I'm hearing so much from you, Catherine. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing so much that the emotional care
Mhm.
matters as much, if not more,
Oh,
than the
probably
physical.
more. Yep. Because you can't, like, your body's gonna hurt, it's gonna be in pain, whatever, whatever. Pain medication, blah, 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 that's great. But how you're feeling because you're hurting, and how you're feeling because you can't walk, how you're feeling because you can't leave the fucking hospital, how you're feeling because you want to get fresh air, how you're feeling because you can't see your kids running on the ground. Like, how you feel is so much more important than if you're not if you're in pain, but if you're like that you're stuck in this room with nobody there.
I think people think about being sick and they think about the physical. What
Mhm.
can I physically do to help you?
Yeah.
And I'm hearing from you, it's like so much more than that. Am I hearing
Mhm.
correctly?
Yeah, you're totally right. You're 100% right. Like, take away my pain, now what? Take away, like, play a game of cards with me, you know? Bring me something that I can do that I can actually do, right? Like, bring me, like, play, Battleship with me or something, like, play a game that I can actually physically do with the abilities that I have, right?
So, what would your recommendations be for somebody who is facing a situation that they might require care?
Well, first listen. First listen, ask them what they need, what you can do, but sometimes they can't if they can't speak, you just show up and you sit with them.
I want to read something that you wrote on National Caregiver Day, which was April 7th. On your Instagram, you wrote, I noticed everything, every check in, every ride, every visit, every message, every moment someone showed up for me when I was too tired to explain what I needed. I am so fucking lucky to be surrounded by people who didn't just say they cared, they proved it. Whew.
Yeah. Um, I had a couple friends that flew in during that time too to visit with me, and, um, that meant a lot to me too. Um,
How much do you think caregiving has impacted the trajectory of your health?
well, I mean, I think having, such a great support system, being like my mom, Craig, Brianne, Christine, like all these amazing friends has made me feel as though like I can't stop, like I can't, like my life is so worth living because I have all of these people in my life and my kids. I think my kids were one of the things that really kept me going, and the people that were helping me be there for my kids, right? So I feel like all those people really would not let me quit. Not that I wanted to quit, but they were like, "You can do this because you have to. And I felt like I owed them something, not that I owed them to get better because they were doing so much work for me. So I was like, even though they were giving me so much, I was like, I want to give them something back too, so that they feel like their help was worth it,
I'm sure they feel that their help is so worth it. And I think people get stopped down not knowing exactly what to say. And you have 13 years of lived experience of, I'm sure, people
Yes.
saying some really not well thought out things to you. And you face that head on an Instagram post. You
Yeah.
posted things that maybe people could say. Can
Yeah.
you kind of unpack that for us?
I don't know exactly what to say, but please know that I care so much. Like, that's one of the best things for like, I don't know what to say, just say that. If you don't know what to say, just tell me you don't know what to say, and I'd be like, "Thank you for saying that," because most people don't, right? Most people don't know exactly what to say. But just saying, like, "I really care about you, and I love you, and I just don't know what to say." So, hug, or, "I'm always here if you ever need to talk. I'm so sorry this has happened to you. What day works for a visit? You are beautiful. Did you see the last episode of, you know, and I love you, or like a hug, just like, fuck, that sucks, hug, or like, I love you so much. Like, just expressing, people are afraid to say I love you. I don't know why, but people are. But I say it all the time because I do love people, right? So if you love somebody, tell them.
You, in the 13 years that you've been living with brain cancer, you've made a decision to become an advocate in this space. You work
Yes.
with Brain Cancer Canada. You,
Mhm. I
um,
do I do a lot of things for free. I'm on the Canadian Cancer Trials Group as the brain, patient representative. I'm also on another board with CCTG, and it's great because 'cause I'm learning so much. I'm on the Lundin board, and that meets every year, every 2 years in BC. I'm just on a bunch of different boards trying to raise awareness, and because we won Amazing Race Canada, I now have a little bit of a bigger platform where I can be like, look at me, we need more money for brain cancer.
What do you think, Catherine, is different in the public consciousness, maybe in the medical consciousness even, about brain cancer versus other cancers?
For one, you'll always have it, right? There's no thing as remission with brain cancer. Because the kind I have, well, like the deadliest kind. So like it's a spider web. So if you could take out your whole brain, like you can take off your whole breast or I'd be fine. But they haven't figured out a way to do that yet. So, because that's who makes you you. But also too, it's considered a rare cancer. And it's the number one killer of kids. So it's the deadliest childhood cancer you can get. And it's still considered rare. And I just can't believe that it's still considered rare because it doesn't get the funding, because rare cancers don't get what breast cancer does or what, colon cancer does but we need something radical to change. We need something. Yes, they give us, like the Lundin family, their dad died of glioblastoma. So they gave all this money and they're giving it to, to work with the Canadian Cancer Society. And nobody's doing anything with it. It's like there's all this money, but nobody knows quite what to do with it. And I'm like, we need something new, something like innovative, something like that we had, we had a meeting and people were talking about this and this and this. And I'm like, try that. And but they have to get through all of the trials. But by the time they get through all of these trials, everybody's going to be dead from this disease. It works so quickly, but the trials come so slowly. And that's the thing. We need to hurry up with the trials. We need to hurry up with figuring out how to make it like a lifelong illness instead of a deathly illness. So I
It's a
think
big difference, a
that's,
lifelong illness versus a deathly
yeah,
illness. From
yeah.
somebody who has been on the receiving end of care living with brain cancer, um, my final question to you is, how can we better support caregivers?
Well, I'm a caregiver and a care receiver. So I think for me as a caregiver, I also need people to talk to that are not the people that I'm taking care of, so like listening to me when I talk, or just listening to me like offload stuff, that helps too. Or, maybe helping that caregiver with something, or, turning it around and being like, I know you've done so much for me, but let me do this for you, just a small thing.
I think that my takeaway from you so very, very much is, listen to each other,
Mhm.
and when we can, actually offer to do something.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. And
Thank
hey,
you.
I'm sorry this is happening to you.
Thank you. Yep. It's perfect. You nailed it.
Thank you for teaching me.
Yeah.
Really.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show, Catherine.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What an incredible woman. We are so grateful to Catherine for sharing her unique perspective on receiving care while she is living with brain cancer. And of course, we want only the very best for Catherine and her family. Thanks to my podcast family, Carrie and Jess of 6 of 1 Digital, for all they do to make the Heart of It All come to life each and every week. We are super active on social media and hope you will join us there at the Heart of It All Pod. That's HART on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. We do love our caregiving community. Thanks for being here this week. And as always, please take care. The inspiration I am taking from Catherine Wreford's story of living with brain cancer and becoming an advocate is about overcoming odds and taking what could be devastating and turning it into something meaningful. This week's recommendation is Erin Brockovich, the true story of a down-on-her-luck law clerk who takes on a massive corporation. Of course, Julia Roberts won an Oscar for her portrayal, and this is still a gold standard movie about overcoming the odds, which is exactly what Catherine is doing. Erin Brockovich is this week's The Heart of It All recommendation.